Example 3 wants us to derive the distance formula. So one thing we need to do to be able to do that is remember the Pythagorean theorem. So if we remember, when we have a right triangle, the two sides that are adjacent or next to the right angle are your legs. So A and B would be legs. And then the side across from the right angle is your hypotenuse, which we called C. And then we could use the formula A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And so now let's look at our problem here. We have 2 points, P and Q. Point P has x coordinate x1 and y coordinate y1. Q has x coordinate x2 and y coordinate y2. And we want to find the distance between those 2 points. So what they've already drawn out for us is a right triangle. The base of that right triangle is the horizontal distance. So to find the horizontal distance, you're finding the absolute value of the distance, or the absolute value of the difference between the two x values. So our two x values are x1 and x2. So they did x2 minus x1. You could have also done x1 minus x2, right? Because you're taking the absolute value, so those distances are going to be the same. They're both going to be positive real numbers. So in our right triangle, that's going to be one of the legs. So we can think of that as A. And then we can think of our vertical distance, y2, the absolute value of y2 minus y1 as B. And then we can think of our C is our distance. So we can then substitute all of those, right, since this is a right triangle, into our Pythagorean theorem. So A, we had in blue here, that was x2, the absolute value of x2 minus x1. And we're squaring it, plus, and then our B. So we can then substitute in our B. That's going to be the absolute value of y2 minus y1 squared. And that's going to equal our distance squared. Okay. And when you square something, you're going to get a positive. So having absolute value and then the square is redundant. So we don't need to include that. We can just simply do x2 minus x1 squared, because when we square it, it's going to become positive anyway. So we don't really need to include those absolute value signs anymore. So we can do y2 minus y1 as well, because it's going to be positive when you square it anyway, so we don't need the absolute values. And then we have d squared. All right, well, we want our distance to be distance equals, and d is our distance, so we want to get rid of that square. So to get rid of a square, we got to take the square root of both sides. So we can take the square root of both sides here, if my pen works. All right, and what we're left with, I'm going to write it over here then. I'm going to switch the d to the other side, right? Square root of d squared is going to be d. And then what we're left with is x2 minus x1. And then y2 minus y1 squared. And so that's how we get our distance formula from the Pythagorean theorem. You guys can now go ahead and do the try it.